Okay, today we are going to be talking about our accelerated training for Illinois manufacturing and Illinois WorkNet, and our topic today is creating personalized training and employment plans. Today on the call we have LaVon Nelson with the Illinois Community College Board. Say hi, LaVon.
Hi.
And LaVon has a head cold, so we're going to try not to make her talk too much today. And we also have Jim Nelson from the Illinois Manufacturers Association. Say hi, Jim.
Good afternoon. Good to be back with you all.
And we're hoping that Mike Baker gets on the call, but he is traveling today, so he may or may not be able to join us. As always, we have myself, Dee Reinhardt, Natasha Telger, the wonderful Lacey Pollock and Chelsea Jones, and I believe Jeannie Kitchens is on the call with us as well today. So watch for their comments in the chat pod as we're going along. So our topics today are going to be about plans, about making the team participation work, as well as creating our model training plan and all the different components there that you see on the list. And then we're going to talk a little bit about tracking progress and following up. So our big picture is continuing on, and we're still in the last portion of our big picture, which is the personal training and employment plans, and we're calling them PTEPs for short. You know how the state is with acronyms, so we had to come up with one for that one as well. So today, we're going to be focusing on those training plans and developing the plan for each participant, making sure that the partners are working with that on-track, off-track option, and then sharing comments with each other so that they can keep on top of everything. So far to date, we've talked about and been working on making sure that we've got the participants' applications submitted, that they're confirmed that they are WIA eligible, that they have passed a TABE test with the right levels to make them suitable, again, determined by the team review, suitable for the program, that they've been able to pass a test, a drug test, and that they've been placed in the treatment group. So this is, once we know that they are in the treatment group, all of this is what happens from there on. So today, our first area is going to be about the plans. So our model training plan, we have some resources available. We have the ATIM guide, and we've got some of the handouts that are in your file pod below. We also have the guide for creating and using a personalized training and employment plan. We have the employer's occupational title and competency crosswalk worksheet. We also have the manufacturing core competencies guide, and then the manufacturing course listing, and all of those items are available at the download site on the ATIM guide, and this is the link that I posted earlier, and if you forget it, we can get that posted again for you later. So in this next section, we're going to be talking about this guide. It's the ATIM team guide for creating and using personalized training and employment plans, and it's always, with our documents, we have found that it's best to have them be a work in progress because this program is evolving and changing, and hopefully those things will be always kept up to date. So if you find something that has been changed, you can always go and get the latest copy from our download section. So an ATIM training and employment plan helps you make sure that everything that is required for that participant is being applied to that applicant's application. So the plan facilitates real-time information so that all of the partners can make sure that their roadmap is always on track. The team members or the students can log in at any time to review the plan, and then the team members can create the plan, change them as needed, and make comments so that each other can stay up to date and know whether a student is on track or off track. There are many benefits available for the students as well. They can see what's going on with their roadmap, and it includes the competencies that they are striving for as well as achieving, and any job openings that are available. They have access to their plan 24/7 because it is online. And they'll be able to see their career plan, the components, what certifications are directly tied to the job, as well as any job openings and the requirements associated. They'll also be able to see whether or not they are on track or off track based on the dates of items that need to be met. So when you're creating the training and employment plan, only the treatment group has plans. Remember that. And each of the plans includes these items. And we have the check marks here because those are the items that will require some team effort. It includes the assessments, credentials, and job placements, their plan, whether or not they have completed the required components in the expanded bridge, and whether or not they will need any of the items from the optional training. It also includes the technical training components and then job openings and placements. So we talked about team, and what we're going to do right now is take a poll to find out what you think and why you think that the team participation is important. All right, we've got quite a few answers going on here. All right, we're going to give it just another moment on the poll. And we're going to be hiding the poll now. So part of the training plan for the applicant is to make sure that everything is moving along smoothly and that they're getting all of the parts of everything done at the right times now. The personal training employment plans are created and updated by the team, and the team participation is a requirement for this ATIM module. We want to make sure that everybody on the team is putting all of their input in so that everybody's comments can be seen by everybody else. It also will allow for adjusting the plan if you need to accelerate it or change a timeline. It also allows for intervention by the team members if a plan component is off track. And you want to make sure that you're engaging the students by showing them a clear roadmap that leads to job opportunities. The employer involvement is an essential component because without the employer and without knowing what they need, the plan really doesn't work all that well. So we want to include the employers to help create and facilitate the personal training and employment plans for the participants. On the team, we have the program manager, the career advisor, the employer, adult education, especially when bridge is needed, and then the post-secondary aspect if we need the MSSC certificates and for the technical training and certifications there as well. When you are beginning to collaborate, there is a section on the dashboard now, or will be shortly, for where you can add team members. And what you'll do is you'll pick the area that you want to add your team members to. I can't get my arrow to work. I'm trying to point to it. Okay. Arrow is being stubborn. We won't use it. Oh, there we go. You can pick the area that you want to use. Then you'll be able to create your team based on the region and the team name. And then you'll be able to add people to the team. And this is what's very important about making sure that all of your workforce partners are set up in the system, including the employers. And as we move forward into the next section, as the team members are added, you'll be able to add them for whether or not they need to check in on suitability, expanded bridge, traditional bridge, the classroom training, or placements. And then you can edit them when something might change. So it will show which areas they will have been included within. So now we've got one more poll question here. What are the required components that team members need to sign off on? All right, we've got some hot and heavy answers going on here. We're going to give it just another second or two. And we're going to be hiding our poll now. The team members are required to sign off on the training plans, and there are different areas based on what your particular area of expertise is. So the project manager and the career advisor are required to sign off on all of the components, the expanded bridge, the optional training, the technical training, as well as the job openings and placements. Adult education is only required to sign off on expanded bridge when it's required, and the optional training if that is required. And Lavon's going to speak about both of those areas in a little bit. The post-secondary area, again, is required on expanded bridge only if necessary for the optional training, and then as well for the technical training and the job openings and placements. And the employer is required to sign off on the plans for all of the areas as well. We want them to be involved in the process to make sure that the competencies are addressed properly. Then we have the following areas for expanded bridge when you're identifying whether or not a service is complete. So the career advisor is going to be required to sign off on all areas. Adult education, if the participant required the optional training sections. The post-secondary is required if they are required in those areas, and the employer will be required to sign off on any job openings and placements. And we'll get to this in just a moment, but remember that internships, work experience, and on-the-job training are all aspects of the job openings and placements. So what you'll want to do is schedule team reviews, and you want to create a plan so that you can pull this all together, and you want to do it at regular intervals. It will be talking about the personal plans, interim touch bases, as well as identifying and remediating issues, and then a final one for the exit review. And the team approach example might be, and you can read that on the screen, the program manager or case manager uses a conference call or a webinar, screen share of some sort, to lead the ATIM team review. And participants can have their ATIM tools open to update the plan as needed. If you don't already have one of those tools in place, Google Hangouts allows you to have up to 10 people on a call for free. So that's an option that you might be able to use. The team meets together in person with a laptop and plans projected on the screen. If you all happen to be very close together, you could potentially schedule a meeting, but the easiest way is a conference call or a webinar. Your goal is to determine the participants' required plan components, and you want to make sure that all of the interests and assessments are working properly so that you can fast-track the participant through the ATIM program. It's best if you can identify a career advisor to be the lead person to ensure that everybody is keeping up to date on the outcomes and on tracks and off tracks. And then for an outcome, you want to make sure that you have selected all the required components, including the start and end dates, and add your comments. Let's take a look at the next slide. I'm sorry. Let's pull out a poll. What components are considered in a personal training employment plan? All right, we've got some answers going on. We're going to be closing this poll in just a moment. Closing the poll now. So to use the plan for the participants, you want to make sure that your team is engaged and you're working with the students, that the project managers and career advisors log into ATIM every workday to make sure that they're using it as a productivity tool to keep track of who's doing what, where, and when. You want to proactively use the dashboard to monitor and facilitate progress. Make sure that you're sharing comments between the team members, checking the on-tracks and off-tracks, and any dates that might need to change or the alerts that come along with that. And then you want to regularly communicate with the student to make sure that they're aware of their plan goals. Have them log into their accounts and check, and then participate in team meetings. Check emails and watch for those off-track statuses to make sure that some dates have not passed so that the components are being completed properly. And then you want to be proactive in making sure that your student is successful. Again, our big picture is each bucket has its own area of competencies, and we will have checked with the employers to make sure that those competencies are aligned properly. Information for the team's use for students will be seen when you log in. You'll be able to see information about the career interest, the credentials, the suitability, the TABE testing, their target occupations, the torque analysis if they've taken that, any work experience that they have, and then the work readiness aspects, which would include the NOCTI test if it's needed or taken. Next, we have additional regional information that is the competencies by the occupation that they would have selected on their preferences at the top of the application. Then the region will provide the courses that go along with the competencies for that particular area. And then the MSSC, the core competency guide, I'm sorry, I said the wrong term there, core competency guide will give you the information that they need for each area, and then we recommend that the courses and the curriculum for those courses match those competencies so that everything all works well together. Now, for expanded bridge, we have some information here, and we've got a wireframe to show you that this is what the screen will look like once we have this all up and working. We want to be able to identify the jobs that are available, the different components with the assessment name that they took, the type that it was, and when the plan date is or was that they took it. Then we also have the personal training and transition plan that will be in there and which criteria are being met. And then the safety is a required component of the MSSC. So we want that to be included in the plan as well. Now, let's find out what kind of supportive services are allowed with the ATIM program. And Natasha pointed out in the chat area that when a participant selects an occupational area, the core competencies will be associated with that occupation bucket. All right, we're going to give you just another moment. And we're going to close the poll in just a moment. I'll give you one more second. I don't see any answers flying furiously. And we're going to hide the poll now. For expanded bridge, we have a couple of things, and as you can see from the check mark, this is a required component for the team to review. Under the career development and exploration, you'll see that you will need to fill in the elements, the start and end dates, and the assessments, and that is the career advisor. The target occupation will be verified by the career advisor, and then the team will review the student's assessments and information as well as the core competencies for the target occupation. Under step 2, the career advisor will work the supportive services and resources needed with the participant. The team will review the big picture training components, and the career advisor will then enter the planned start and end dates for each of the items that needs to be completed. On step 1, the team members required is the career advisor for sure, and this is the portion that reviews the TABE results, the TORC analysis, the career interest assessments, the work readiness pre-assessments, any previous credentials or certificates that they would have had on their application, and any work experience from their application, and then also the target occupation competencies that will show up when they pick which bucket they want to participate within. Now, while the development of the plan is a joint effort, there must be one person who will be in charge of making sure that all of the points on the checklist are covered and that everyone is doing their part. We don't know exactly who you will select, but we do anticipate that it would be someone that would be working with the participant on a regular basis. And we want to just remind you that the employer input is essential in this whole process. When you're selecting the target occupation, it would be one of the 4 bucket areas: machining, mechatronics, welding, the logistics, or inventory. And then you want to make sure that they're selecting the occupation, which will automatically attach the correct core competencies to the plan. And again, for the core competencies, it's the same thing as the INAM terminal objectives. These represent the standards that have been covered through all of these areas that we've been discussing over a number of these webinars. We want to make sure that when they are a certified production technician, that those ATIM categories is machine operator and so forth on the chart there. And if you want to refer to the document, it is the Manufacturing Core Competencies Guide, which I believe is the first item in the file share pod. And as you look at the screen, this is the example of the Core Competency Guide on the left and then the crosswalk on the right, so that you'll know which document that you're looking at when you want to see which part needs to be referred to and reviewed. Now, for Section 3, the safety is a required component of the MSSC. The career advisor will be determining whether or not the participant already has this credential, and if not, it is a required credential that they must obtain. Again, they're going to identify the big picture components and enter start and end dates. And as a note at the bottom of the page, you will notice that all required team members must indicate when their service is complete. All team members can comment at any time, and all team members can select whether or not they are on track or off track. So let's take one more poll. What type of training are available? We're going to give it just another moment or two. And as a reminder, please enter any questions that you have in the chat pod so that we can get those answered for you. We do have a technical assistance webinar at 10 o'clock in the morning. So if you miss asking your questions today, you can ask them tomorrow. All right, we're going to give it another moment and close the poll. I'm going to hide it now. This is a wireframe of the options on the screen for optional training. So, Levon, would you like to talk to us about what traditional bridge contextualized learning means?
Sure. I apologize for the way I sound, everyone. If you know me, you know I don't normally sound like this. But anyway, contextualized learning, what will happen if someone has not scored appropriately at the 9th and 10th grade reading levels, reading and math levels, they would then go into what many of you may already be familiar with is our traditional bridge, which includes the main component of contextualized learning, which is curriculum that has been contextualized to the occupation. So in this case, it is manufacturing contextualized. So the reading and math all is built around manufacturing. And what is going on currently at ICCD, because we have a small grant to enable us to work on contextualized curriculum. We're taking the contextualized manufacturing curriculum and working on it, making it ready for everyone to be able to use out in the field and in both for all of you. And what that will entail is that we have people that will be available to come and work with you, provide you some training, some professional development on bridge, on contextualized learning in the with the manufacturing curriculum, etc. And then they can help you as you're working on this component, or help those that are going to be providing this particular section of training. So one of the reasons it's important to mention this here is that once you know who your MSSC training provider is going to be and your skill training provider, it's really important if you can let me know, because we need to make contact with you or them to ask if they need assistance, so we can ensure, that they have all the information they needed, that this curriculum is available, etc. So that, I think, is the point there. And I think it's we're anticipating that some adult ed, or maybe more than some, could possibly be doing that MSSC level 1. It depends on how you've structured it. So it's really critical for us to know who the training providers are, so that we can work with community colleges and adult ed to provide training. Did any of that make sense?
Oh, Levon, do
Yes.
you know if the community colleges will be offering the advanced, those last 3 sections on the MSSC certification training?
I do not know that, because we do not know who all of the community colleges are that have been awarded the training contracts.
Great.
That's why it's important for us to know that.
So then that means that if somebody knows who their MSSC training provider is, they need to get that information to Levon. And if you will say your email address,
yes.
Then, Natasha just typed it in there for us, so you don't have to say it.
Okay.
It's
all right.
levon.nelson@illinois.gov, correct?
Right.
Great, great. Okay. All right, so let's move on to the next slide, page 38. And would you like to add anything here about those items that are on slide 38?
No, I think the important thing is to know that a lot of this will, this will all be taking place through adult education. And then, then they'll be moved on for the optional, as far as the traditional bridge. So okay. I don't think there's anything additional to add.
Okay, so the career advisor and the adult education representative will work with everybody, all the participants, if they need it for the contextualized learning, to make sure that those academic requirements are met for the training components on ATIM. Okay, and then under the employability skills, which is NCRC, we'll make sure that the team is reviewing those, and the career advisor will enter their ending and starting dates. And then with the MSSC certification, remember that safety is required, but the other 3 components are an optional training. And the project manager, the career advisor, and the employer will determine whether or not those additional 3 components are required for the plan. And again, all the team members are required to indicate when the service is complete based on their participation with the service. So now we're going to move on to the technical training. And Levon, we're on slide 41, and we're talking about the technical training with the drop-down menu that's on there with the credentials for NIMS. And if you would like to cover just briefly, how will we make sure that the classes cover the competencies and the certifications?
Okay, that's where we go back to the manufacturing core competencies guide and why we put the crosswalk in there or the tables. So what should be happening at the regional level is that this information, the core competencies, has been shared with the training provider, which may not be a community college. So first of all, this core competency information has to have been shared with potential training providers, because they should know about it so that they can build it into their training programs. And then what is to happen is that the classes that or the courses that they design, or not necessarily everything will be designed from the beginning, but that they are going to utilize, should make sure that they can align and show alignment of the competencies with particular activities and outcomes in the course. So, you have the competency, then you have the activity, then you have the outcome, which should show that core competency is covered in the class. And so that is how that would happen. And then there are core competencies for, as Dee said, for all of the areas, all of the occupations. The other thing to keep in mind is that there could be overlapping of core competencies within a course, or there could be core competencies that are split among courses. It's going to be much like the personalized training plan. It's going to be very individualized by training provider and by course. Keep in mind that at any time that you are building these core competencies, or you're asking your training providers to verify that the core competencies are being covered, that you have taken into account employers' input to the core competencies, because what you don't want to happen is that training provider develops the course and they're offering it based on the core competencies you've given them, and down the road the employer comes in and says, oh, but I need 5 other core competencies, which goes back to the point we've been making through everything, how critical it is that the employer is engaged in this all along the way, particularly in the section of making sure that all the core competencies get covered within a course or across courses.
And we will be talking more about the actual training plan, classroom activities tomorrow in our webinar at 2 o'clock.
Right.
All right. So you might be able to throw in a few more words there tomorrow, Levon, and your voice might be better as well.
Yeah.
All right. So on this next slide, this is a required component for the team members that are associated. And again, as Levon mentioned, we need to make sure that the core competency guide matches the curriculum guide, including the employer's input. And then we want to make sure that we're comparing what the participants already have to what they are targeting in their near future. And then we want to make sure that we can fast track those participants to complete the program and earn their credential without extending any time in the program. So the project manager, the career advisor, and the employer need to identify any additional competencies and then identify the technical training courses for the team and then the team will identify which certifications that the student needs to complete. So when we're identifying a program of study, as I mentioned, we will be doing this tomorrow in a little bit more detail, but we want to talk a little bit about the different opportunities that somebody might pursue. And it's part of their personal training employment plan. And we have some things here with classroom, OJT, work experience, or a combination of any of them. So what ideas do you have, Levon, that might, or Jim, do you have any ideas that you could suggest to the group about how they might help their training provider structure their program? So let's start with Levon.
Well, I'm sure as they've worked with their training providers, because we also have to be, as we're working with all of this, we do have to be real. One of the issues that we do run into is that we're doing a just-in-time, but what I call just enough training, and that is a hard concept for entities, particularly training providers, I think, to wrap their minds around, because what we're talking about, this is really about employment and getting people the training that they need to become employable, which may not be, the full semester, the full course, etc. So I think when you ask what are some of the things that can be done, and I know we're talking about acceleration here, but I think there has to be, you have to ensure that there's a real understanding and a real communication on both sides of what is really being asked and what they're really after, so that the training provider knows where they're really supposed to be going with this, and they should have a good understanding of this now, that most of them are submitting, most of the RFPs or RFQs have come in. But that to me is a foundation piece that you're really talking the same language. So as far as then acceleration goes, helping the training provider to be able to have the tools and the backup to be able to say within their institution or their entity, hey, here's what we're talking about here, and how they can get the support to make that happen within their institution, to be able to shorten a course, to be able to ask for a waiver from ICCB. It's all those kinds of things, and they need that backup. In some cases, they're going to need that to be able to make the training accelerated. I'm trying to get some better examples for tomorrow of some examples of acceleration, but
and let's remember that one of the key aspects here is innovation, so that this list is not exactly an exhaustive list.
No.
One of the goals of this program is to discover new and different ways of accelerating training that meets the needs of the customer, which of course is the employer.
Right. So which program is going to make the best fit? It's all based on competencies, the forecasts from the employers, the participant needs, and then making sure that all of that matches the crosswalked competencies, which is in the file share pod if you have not already downloaded that. Job placements will automatically show up on the plans as they're entered in the ATIM job openings and forecastings page. And in addition to showing the openings, you'll need to indicate planned placements. The different types of learning opportunities will also be in there, meaning there will be internships, work experience, and on-the-job training opportunities, as well as full-fledged jobs. So you want to make sure that you are reviewing all of those openings and speaking with your employers as well as your participants to see which ones are going to meet the best needs for everyone. You also want to identify the difference between the training opportunities and permanent employment opportunities. And we know that employers can't necessarily hold a position open for an extended period of time, but we do need to know that those things are there and available. So let's talk a little bit about national certificate attainment, and we're going to explore these in greater detail tomorrow as well. But I'd like Jim to talk a little bit about what these three areas are.
Okay, the Manufacturing Skills Standards Council was a creature of, let's go back, MSSC, the Manufacturing Skills Standards Council, was a creature born in the Clinton administration through federal legislation designed to try and establish nationally recognized skill standards for various occupations. The manufacturing area was really the only one that really finished the job. Took them about 5 years, and they had more than 350 employers and educators develop the standards. And these are really the basic standards that cut across all of manufacturing, whether you're making cupcakes or steel. And they are meant to make someone entry-level employable regardless of what the product is being made. Individuals whose switch is flipped, as I like to say, by metalworking or machining or computerized metalworking, their stop is with the National Institute for Metalworking Skills, or NIMS as it's more affectionately known. NIMS has more than 100 different certifications that are available throughout, that an individual can obtain throughout their career. What we're focusing on, though, is the entry-level NIMS 1, 2, and 3, essentially. But in a later slide, you'll see that there are almost 11 different credentials that could be earned under any program that we have. So that it really does meet the needs of employers, whether it's a traditional shop where there's manual lathes or grinding or cutting, or the more modern shops where there are high-velocity CNC machines in operation. The other area that we're focusing on, of course, is the American Welding Society, or AWS. They have 8 credentials, and these are very high-level credentials. They are actually tied in many ways to degree programs. The real I always call it the winner certification for AWS, is the Certified Welding Inspector. And those guys start work in the $55,000 to $60,000 a year range, and in salary alone, and they can go up to $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 in virtually no time. The certificate is far more advanced than the normal agricultural focused training that has been in Illinois high schools and community colleges for years, where we're doing a T-weld to put the plow back together. This goes much deeper into electrology and metallurgy, so that when someone is asked to weld something, they know exactly what they're working with, how much power it's going to take, and what type of connective tissue is going to be the best for that particular job. This can also go into very specialized welding areas, such as pressurized vessels, which are particularly important for our refining industry, and even underwater welding, which is critical for the Chicago port area, as well as the St. Louis and the river barges down there. So it's a wide array of credentials available, and they are out there. They are offered at many of our community colleges. One thing I do want to point out is that some of your employers will tell you that they've never heard of these, and I would imagine that those are going to be more the small and medium-sized manufacturers who are more focused on keeping the doors open than whether or not Ed back on the lathe machine has a NIMS credential. So there is some outreach that we are doing here at the IMA to make people aware that, you know, these are the credentials that we're teaching towards. They do have nationally adopted standards for that industry, and that they were developed by that industry, so that we know when somebody walks in with an AWS credential, we know exactly what that person's been taught, and we know exactly the standard to which he's been held to hold that certificate.
On mute. I apologize.
Okay.
Our next sheet talks about the American Welding Society, the credential, which the inspector is the creme de la creme. We've got the MSSC certifications, which safety is required. And the last three are an optional training item. We have the NCRC, as well as the NIMS standards, which will be in the training drop-down that we'll be talking a little bit more about tomorrow. And the NIMS credentials will be available, as I just said, in the drop-down, whether they have gotten it and received the early dates and the ending dates. So that's the credentials that you'll be able to find. So let's move on to job openings and placements. We will have the team review this. You can see that by the check mark at the top. And the job placements will automatically show up on plans when they're entered through the job openings and forecastings page. And it will also, as I said earlier, it will show whether or not it is a work-based learning or a full-time employment opportunity. The team will need to review any work-based learning opportunities, and that team will include the employers, and they will be identified by the team as work-based learning or permanent employment, and the dates will be entered in there as well. Now, transition plans is another area that we need to focus on, and once the students have finished the training, they'll need to know and have a little plan in place for what they're going to do to get from learning to earning. And we want to make sure that if the work site is not going to hire them directly, then we need to help them with their job search. And that includes making sure that their update to the resume is completed, that they have a new cover letter, to make sure that they get a refresher on their interviewing skills, and how are they going to express their newly gained skills, and how that transfers from those many years of job experience that they might have into new tools that they've just learned. How can they make sure that somebody understands that their new tools are just that, new tools? And then how will they be addressing on-the-job training items on their applications? Were they getting paid during OJT? Were they not being paid? Is it a volunteer type sort of thing that somebody might be doing while they're looking for a job otherwise? So all of those plans need to be started to be worked out so that we can help the participants transition once they are done with training. And again, we need to put a plan in place to make sure that we are tracking progress and following up with our participants. So the plan is a roadmap that needs to be adjusted as we're working. And just as soon as those adjustments are made, they need to be looked at again. We need to make sure that we're flagging if there's on-track or off-track opportunities that need to be intervened upon. And then you need to make sure that the team meets on a regular basis, updating the plan on a regular basis, and making sure that the students are staying on track. And within your region, you want to develop a plan to make sure that you stay in touch with your participants who are part of that treatment group. There is a time frame afterwards, and if we can unmute Jerry for just a moment, if Jerry can add for us what the time frame is on the follow-up that is required for this program. Chelsea, can we get Jerry, or is he still available? Yes, Jerry called in. All right, we'll get Jerry to address that in just a moment. We're going to move on here.
Hello.
Hello, Jerry. How are you?
How are you? Good, thanks.
I'm good. Thanks for joining us. Can you address for our audience what the length of time that will be required for the follow-up for this study and for the group?
You mean for the entire study?
Yes. How long will the participants need to stay in touch with their career advisor?
Well, as long as the participants are working, that information will be collected through the state wage system, and it'll be tracked for just about a year after they enter employment, placed in employment. That's the question?
Yes, that's the question. So they'll need to develop a plan to make sure that they can stay in touch with the participants for at least a year, right?
Right.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate you calling in on that.
I was really hoping to hear Jim, his version of Moon River, but...
Well, I liked the comment in there from Jeremy. Hello, darkness, my old friend. Yeah, it was pretty dark there for a moment, especially once I started singing. Okay, so we've got a couple of webinars coming up. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock, we're going to be talking about classroom training and the national certifications. Wednesday morning at 10 a.m., we're going to be talking about following up and reporting. We do have a technical assistance webinar tomorrow at 10 a.m., and we will have a refresher and updates on random assignment on the 23rd at 1 p.m. And as we have some new releases coming out, we will have those included into the schedule, and you will be notified about that. So our newest additions for the ATIM tools are the documents at the bottom of the screen. You can always find the newest and latest information on the ATIM guide. And if you need to register for any of the webinars, Chelsea has put the link into the chat pod as well as the ATIM guide link into the chat pod. And this is the last of this webinar today, and if you would take just a moment or two to answer our polls here. Natasha or anyone, do we have an idea when the remainder of the dashboard and any of our tools will start becoming available?
Well, we are currently working on, testing the team component that you showed some screen captures of today. So that will be early this week. And then we are also working on the forecasting component. And that is scheduled, for testing like early next week. So we can release that early next week.
Great, great. So it looks like we're making progress with all of our items. And again, you will be notified when there is an update available so that we can get you onto a webinar to do a little show and tell. So unless we have any other last minute questions, we are right on time at 4:30, and we want to get everybody off so that they can answer the last few emails before they need to leave for the day. Any other questions, we'll be happy to address them. Otherwise, we can catch them tomorrow morning at the technical assistance webinar or tomorrow afternoon when we're talking about the classroom options and the national certifications. I'd like to thank LaVon Nelson. I'd like to thank LaVon and Jim Nelson and LaVon Nelson. They are not related. But thank you both for joining us on the webinar today. LaVon, I hope your throat and voice and cold are a lot better. And thanks, Jim, for joining us. And
my pleasure as always.
Thank you, Jerry, for joining us on the spur of the moment. We appreciate your input. As always, I would like to thank Chelsea and Lacey and Natasha for their continued support in these webinars. They do a fantastic job, and they never get enough praise. So we'd like to thank everybody for their help. Have a great afternoon, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.